The Smith family moved into our neighborhood a few months ago. They were a nice, quiet family, just parents and two little kids. Not long after they settled in, they decided to adopt a dog from the local shelter. I remember talking to Mr. Smith about it when I saw him walking the dog one morning. His name is Max, he said, smiling. He's been through a lot, but he's a part of our family now. Max was a big, fluffy German Shepherd mix, and you could tell he had a gentle heart. The kids adored him, and every time I passed their yard, Max would be playing fetch or running happily. The Smiths always said adopting Max was the best decision they ever made. But no one realized just how important he could become. One summer evening, something happened that none of us could have imagined. I was sitting on my porch when I saw fire trucks rushing down the streets. I followed them to the Smith's house, and that's when I saw smoke coming out of their windows. My heart sank. I could see Mrs. Smith and the kids standing outside, crying and holding each other. But Mr. Smith was still inside. Later, I found out what happened. Mrs. Smith told me that while they were having dinner, something in the kitchen caught fire. The flames spread quickly, and everyone rushed to get out. But in the chaos, Mr. Smith had gone back in to grab some important documents. The smoke was so thick that he couldn't find his way back out. Max, the sweet dog they had adopted just weeks ago, noticed what was happening. Mrs. Smith said Max started barking loudly, pulling at her arm as if he wanted to go back inside. She was hesitant, but before she could stop him, Max darted into the house. Max ran into the smoke filled house without hesitation. Mrs. Smith was panicking, unsure if she would ever see her husband or the dog again. Just when the fire seemed to grow stronger, Max reappeared, dragging Mr. Smith by his sleeve. Mr. Smith was coughing and weak, but he was alive, thanks to Max's bravery. The firefighters arrived just in time to put out the fire. But it was clear that without Max, things could have ended much worse. Mrs. Smith told me that Max didn't hesitate for a second. He knew something was wrong and acted like a true hero. She said, "We thought we were saving Max when we adopted him, but it turns out he saved us." The story of Max spread quickly around the neighborhood, and he became a local hero. People came by to give him treats and pats on the head. Max didn't seem to care about the attention. He was just happy to be with his family, wagging his tail and playing with the kids. Max's actions reminded us all that sometimes, even in the most unexpected places, true heroes can be found. I'll never forget what Mrs. Smith said to me that day. Max wasn't just a pet to us, he was a blessing. After Max became the neighborhood hero, his protective instincts and intelligence continued. Mrs. Smith shared more incredible stories with me over coffee one day, and I was left speechless. One rainy night, the family was sound asleep when Max began growling softly near the front door. Mrs. Smith, now attuned to Max's instincts, knew he couldn't act this way unless something was wrong. Mr. Smith checked the door and noticed a shadowy figure trying to pick the lock. Before Mr. Smith could react, Max barked fiercely, scaring the intruder away. The next morning, the police confirmed there had been a string of burglaries in the area. Thanks to Max, the Smiths avoided becoming victims. During a picnic at a local park, the youngest Smith child, Emily, was playing hide and seek. Panic set in as the family searched high and low, calling her name. Max immediately picked up her scent and led them deep into the woods. They found Emily sitting near a creek, scared but unharmed. Mrs. Smith told me she couldn't imagine what might have happened if Max hadn't been there. One afternoon, Mr. Smith had a severe allergic reaction to something he ate. His throat began to close and he couldn't speak to ask for help. Max noticed something was wrong and started tugging at Mrs. Smith's clothes, barking nonstop until she followed him to the living room. Realizing the emergency, Mrs. Smith called an ambulance just in time. The paramedics later said Max's quick actions might have saved Mr. Smith's life. Every story Mrs. Smith shared reinforced how much Max had become more than just a pet. He was family. She ended our conversation by saying, "Adopting Max was the best decision we ever made. He's taught us so much about love, loyalty, and courage." Max's story has inspired not only the Smith family, but the entire community to value their pets and recognize the incredible ways they can change our lives.
I hope you liked this story. If you could improve your English a little more, please subscribe to the channel and share this video with a friend. Thank you very much for your support. Take care.